Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
Welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast, where we bring you top experts from all over the world to help you take the next step in your property investing journey. My name is Daniel Wood. I'm one of the founders of Momentum Property Education, and I will be your host today when we have a very exciting guest, one of the other co-founders of Momentum Property Education, Gisela Wood, who also happens to be my wife, speaking about service apartments. We go in deep in this episode about what do you need to think about when doing a service apartment deal. We also look at what is the difference from investing in Spain and investing in the UK. So we have a lot of exciting things for you in this episode. If you want to connect with us, because we'd love to connect with you, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we have shows coming out every single week, and also join our Facebook community. You can go to the Momentum Property Education Facebook page and check out our linked group there. It's International Property Investors, where you'll meet over 1,500 investors from all over the world. We'd love to meet you, learn more about you and where you are going, and see if maybe we can help you take that next step. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Let's get into the interview. Hello and welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I am really excited to be here with our guest, Gisela, one of the co-founders of Momentum Property Education, and of course, my wife. Welcome, honey, to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here again.
Yeah, exactly. And we are really excited because we've had you as a guest on the mastermind group for a couple times in the last couple months, because the mastermind group has wanted to learn more about how to do proper due diligence on service departments, how to look at deals in international markets, how to analyze different international markets. And the sessions have been so good that I wanted you to come and share it with our overall community. So let's get into it right away. Let's start with service departments and kind of how you look at that. But first off, do you want to share with everyone what is service departments, just so everyone is on that base level?
So service accommodation, that is when you're renting something out in a very short amount of time. So like 1 day, 2 day, a week, 2 weeks, shorter lettings. You normally rent that out in a tourist market or to people coming in and work for a shorter amount of time. Maybe builders coming in for a month or something. Or some other workers that are coming in and working in a different place over a short amount of time. And the most common place for us to find those properties are Airbnb, Booking.com, and so on.
Right. So essentially, I have a property or I can rent a property. We talk about rent to rents as well, but somehow I take over the control over a property, and then I rent it out short term through Airbnb, Booking.com, or local businesses and so on, and hopefully make a whole lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, that is why service accommodation has been so sexy the last years, not talking during the Corona time, because then, of course, the demand went down. And I think a lot of people who had huge portfolios of service accommodation were having big problems. We could see, for instance, I was looking in the Liverpool area, how the demand for service accommodation or hotels and so on had gone down. So it had gone down with about 70%.
Right.
From 2019 to 2020.
So let's look at the pros and cons of service apartments, because you're touching on them already. But let's start with the pros, and then we'll go through and detail these cons, the risk, so to speak. But why, if I'm a potential investor, say I've done some buy-to-let properties, I've done some HMOs, why would I be interested in getting into service departments? What's good with a service department?
Well, you can make more money.
Oh, I like that. All right. I like the sound of that so far. All right. So the total rent is higher, in other words.
Yeah, and it's a lot higher. Of course, you need to look into it deeper because the calculation is more advanced.
We'll get to that, how we calculate those deals in a moment. Yeah.
But other than that, it is a way for you to get a higher ROI, to get more money out of the property.
Right. So if that's my pro, obviously every investor, we're looking to squeeze every single dime out of a property. What is the negative? What is the risks with doing a service department?
Well, it's different risks if you are buying the property and then doing a service accommodation than if you are doing a rent-to-rent service accommodation, of course. But the risks are, at the moment, the biggest risk is we don't know what's happening with the market. Will cities close down? Will they say that no one can fly in and so on? Yeah. Will we have new lockdowns affecting that market? And if we get that, of course, the service accommodation is going to be heavily affected. Other than that, it's important for us to look at seasons when we're having a service accommodation. Even though we are in a big city where the seasons aren't affecting us as much as when we are in, maybe beach
South
areas.
Spain.
Yeah, south of Spain. We need to look at seasons. So we're probably going to have like a peak season and a high season, a medium season and a low season. And in that peak season, we are going to make a lot of money. But in the low season, we might be at a ±0. Or if we are doing a rent-to-rent option there, it might be that we're actually losing money during the low season. So it's very important that we look at the different months. How is it with the occupancy rates in January, February, March, and so on over the year to see if we're having a very high occupancy in July, August, September, and so on, and we're having a very low one maybe in November. We need to make sure that we have money in the account in November.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So you kind of balance out the cash flow. So all right, let's look at how to actually, as you said, with the calculations and stuff. Let's say I'm talking to my sourcing agents, I get a rent-to-rent or a buy service department on the table. So I have this opportunity to go out and do a service department, a service accommodation deal. What do I do? What do I need to think about?
Well, a lot of things, of course. I would say that if you are new in this, you should find a management agent who can help you so that you are getting the most exposure as you can with your property, with somebody who knows what they are doing, so that they have everything in place for you. And also maybe already working with companies, so corporations, to get some clients in that way during the lower seasons when we're not having as much tourists coming in.
And of course, the great benefit of renting out through kind of other sources than Airbnb and Booking.com is you don't have to pay the 15% fee to Airbnb and Booking.com. So if you have a letting agent that can find you a tenant directly, a letting agent will obviously usually charge 15%. But if they find you a tenant outside of Airbnb, they've already covered their fee because you would have been paying that same fee to Airbnb. Plus you get that full service of them, welcoming people, taking care of them, making sure they have a good stay and supporting them and doing all the marketing. So there's
the things that you're saying now, that is, the systems that you need to have in place for a service accommodation for the one coming there to feel very welcome and that they know what they are getting, maybe a checklist of what is close by and so on. So everything needs to be in place there. So it's, they need to have the cutlery in place. They need to have towels in place. They need to have linens in place. Everything needs to be there, and it needs to be decorated in a much, much nicer way than if you are doing a normal buy-to-let.
Yeah, of course, because everything is based on reviews, right? That is the key. You need to get the good reviews. All right. So the first thing I do is I get the deal on the table, and I make sure I have a great management agent that's going to take care of this property. If I have that, if say, for example, my sourcing agent provides that, what do I do next?
So now when you're getting the deal and you're looking at it, it's time to do your due diligence on the deal, of course.
As always.
And and you probably got that from your sourcing agent, that they have sent over some numbers for you. But most sourcing agents, then they are just showing you how it would look like if you have an occupancy rate of like 40%, 50%, 60%, and so on. They are not telling you what you're actually going to have in an occupancy rate. And they are probably going to give you an average rental possible nightly income.
Yeah. And of course, if they don't, if they're telling you you will have 80% occupancy at this level, you still got to remember this is a salesperson selling you a deal, which means that doesn't mean it's necessarily true.
No, exactly. So the next step here is, of course, that you need to do your due diligence. So you need to go in and look in booking.com and Airbnb, look at properties close by. For instance, if you're getting a property on a certain road in a city, you need to then go in and search for that road in Airbnb and booking.com. You will then find other properties around that one. If you're not seeing any other properties around your property, if it's just empty there and it's just closer to the city, that is probably because it doesn't work in that area.
Red flag, red flag.
So don't use those comparables then that are closer to the city. If you don't have any comparables that are close to your property, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So once I've seen that. All right. So I see. Say I got this one in the middle of the city center, or like the deal we've been looking at now. It's in London. It's in a good area of London. You know, obviously things are rented out there. Well, what do I do now? So I see that there are other things out on the market.
Yeah, and you want to know how many of them are currently. What is the occupancy rate? What is the percentage? How much is booked and how much isn't booked? And this is great because you can see this on booking.com, for instance, you can see it in a map view, and everything that is booked, then they are red, and the things that are available, it's white. So you can then see how much that is booked.
Right.
And for instance, looking at that property, we have a lot of large hotels in the area close by that are fully booked, which is good.
Yep.
And we also then need to look at, okay, what do we have? And what is out there, and how much are they getting in rental income or average nightly income? Yeah.
And so, all right. So I've seen. Let's continue using our London deals here as a case in point. So for you listening, we're actually taking two rent to rent. So we're renting two properties in London, and we're going to be renting them out as service apartments. So we've seen that we have. You know, there is a huge demand in the area. Two huge hotels are fully booked. And we know people like living in apartments instead because they have their own kitchen. They have some different freedom. And we have a lot of the apartments in the area are booked. We see what are the others getting in rent. So we compare that and we see, yeah, this is what we would get.
And we need to make sure that our property is the same quality. The same way as we do with other properties when we're doing our due diligence on HMOs and normal buy-to-lets. We need to look at the comparables, the right comparables, the properties that is the same size, that has the same size as many bedrooms, that has a garden or parking or a balcony. It needs to be the same.
Yeah. So once I know, all right, I have some good comparables. I now know, if I know my occupancy and I know my nightly rate, I now know how much money I'll be earning in.
Yeah.
But that's, so to speak, gross income. That's not net income. That's the income before expenses. So now we got to do our calculation. So when you're doing a service department, you have different expenses than you do when you
But I would say another step there, if you're doing a rent to rent and you're rent to renting apartments, it's so important for you to know that you're actually doing this legally correct. Are you allowed to rent out a service accommodation in that building? So the legal parts needs to be correct first also, because if they aren't, why spend all this time doing all the due diligence?
Yeah. So yeah, we maybe do that even before you start looking at the rentals. Just look at, is this doable? Can I do this?
Yeah,
all right. Exactly. So once I know that, I know it's legal, I know what I'm going to make in. What kind of expenses?
And another step there also, when it comes to the legal parts, we have some cities, for instance, New York, that isn't allowed to add more service accommodations. So it doesn't matter if you should be allowed by actually that building or community, because the city doesn't allow it.
Yeah. All right. So once I know it's legal, I know what I'm going to make. What kind of expenses do we have on a service department?
Yeah, so the difference here when it comes to a service accommodation compared to other types of properties is we are going to have a variable cost based on how much it's rented out. Since we have the booking fees, and the cost for them is only coming if we have a booking, of course.
Right. So that is basically when someone books through Airbnb or booking.com, the platform withholds 15% of the rent.
Exactly.
They keep
And
that.
we could have a credit card fee also here.
Right, which could be about 3% in that case.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that comes in, and then of course we have our management agent who will usually charge about 15%.
Yeah.
So that's right there. That's about 33% of the rent that just gets taken before it ever hits you. So
Yeah.
say we're getting £100 per night, that actually means that net we're getting £67 per night just after those fees. Now, that's not the end of the expenses though, is it?
No, so every time when we're getting a booking, between the bookings, we're of course going to have cleaning fees.
Right. So every time, so that's where it gets a little difficult to calculate, because obviously if someone books 4 days, you just need to clean it once after 4 days. But if someone books 1 day, you have to clean it again the next day, and the cleaning fee is the same either way.
Exactly.
And what's a regular cleaning fee? Obviously, that is depending on country. We're going to talk about Spain.
And the size of the property as well.
Yeah.
But here, talk with the agent that you're going to use and ask them, what is the cleaning fee? So that you calculate with the right fee. But then it's like Daniel says, it could be, but a lot of people renting out service accommodation, they are removing the chance to actually book 1 day.
Right.
It needs
because
to be
the cleaning
days or
fee
more.
is so high.
Yeah,
that you'd
it
lose
becomes too
essentially the
expensive
income.
for them.
Right. So
Exactly.
then you set a 2 day or even a 3 day minimum stay period.
Exactly. And what you can do here to see what is the average, how long does people in average stay? Then you can go in and see from the people traveling and tourist statistics of the area. Just Google tourist statistics, and then you will see how long people are staying in average. And here we have a big difference. If you're looking at going into a big city, for instance, like London, then people are on average staying maybe 3 days. But if they are going to a Marbella or a beach resort in Spain, they are on average staying 7 days.
Right.
Yeah, they are going on a vacation.
Yeah.
And
so
we can see these statistics.
Really vary based on that. So that will be important, because that will have a huge impact on your net result. And then now you obviously then the further expenses are kind of based on if you're renting the property or if you own the property. If you're renting, you'll have a rent to the landlord. If you own the property, you're going to have your mortgage, you could have a ground rent and service charge. And then in both cases, you'll have your small expenses like Wi-Fi and broadband and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you have a council tax.
And of course, the council tax in both cases.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of expenses. So now let's look at this as a rent to rent now, because we're looking at a rent to rent in London. So we know what we're going to make in. We've done that work. We know all these expenses, and we've made an educated guess on the average length of the stay based on that due diligence. So we kind of know what the numbers are going to be. What is important to think about there? What are we kind of looking for numbers wise?
I don't know what you mean there, but I would say if we're having a rent and we're renting it over a 3-year period, we would love our money to get back the first year.
Right. So we put in, say, for example, £10,000. We want a net profit of £10,000 in year 1. And then year 2 and year 3, usually we work with 3-year contracts, and that's the most common. Year 2 and year 3 would be the profit.
Exactly. And here, one other thing that we need to look at in the beginning when we're doing our due diligence is when we're getting a rent-to-rent contract, are we paying the right rent? So here we also need to go in and look at comparables for other rental properties the same size, normal buy-to-let properties, to see sure that we are paying the right price.
£3,000 for a £1,000 per month property.
Exactly. But because one way here to cover ourselves if something happens to the market that says that we're going to have a lockdown for instance, then if it's possible for us to rent it out by month instead and still make plus minus zero, that would be good, right?
Yeah, exactly. At least we can go break even. It's not costing us money every month.
Exactly.
Obviously, what we're trying to do is we are looking at what is the occupancy even in a lockdown, because you still do get bookings for different reasons, even in lockdown periods. So our goal is to make 33% per year of our initial investment back in worst case scenario, meaning we are still profitable every month. And over the 3-year contract, we'll just make our money back. So we're not profitable, but we don't lose money, because that's what we're trying to do. All right, cool. So let's look at the Spanish market instead, because we've obviously on this podcast, we've talked a lot of the UK. We're actually starting to do some deals in Spain. We did it after the last crash. We were investing a lot in Spain. Now we're kind of coming back into the market. What's kind of the pros of the Spanish market in your opinion?
Well, I would say that a big pro is that the Spanish banks lend to you as a private individual. If you are European, they look at your credit score. So you just order a credit report and order it so that you get an English report, and then you can send it to the Spanish banks, and they will lend to you based on that report. And we can see as good mortgages there as about 8% loan to value and 1.75% interest rate. So with those products, then something really happens to your ROI.
Yeah, your return goes through the roof. So we've obviously historically we've looked mainly at service department properties, getting the tourism markets. But what we're doing now is we're actually looking at buy-to-lets in larger cities because of, as you say, the mortgage product is so attractive.
Yeah, exactly. And another reason is that we have a good partner there in the bigger cities that can help us out. And, working with the right people, I think you have said that before, it's so important.
It is such a key. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave it there. And if anyone's interested in learning more about Spain and getting into the Spanish market, just reach out to Momentum Property Education at info@momentumpropertyeducation.com, or go to our Facebook page and go to our linked group, the International Property Investors. We'll be happy to talk to you more about that there. And if it turns out there is an interest, let us know, because then we'll do a complete separate episode going in deep into the details on what it means to invest in the Spanish market, or if you want to go further into the due diligence on how to do service departments. In either case, we'll bring Gisela back and get into it. So, honey, thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone, thank you so much for watching. I got some exciting news in a moment, so stay tuned, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you again so much for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the Momentum Investing podcast so you don't miss any of our updates. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, where we have our Tuesdays market update, where we every Tuesday update you on what's going on in the property market and the macroeconomic market as a whole. Thursdays is, of course, the Momentum Investing podcast, and Saturdays we do Passive Income Mastery. We'd love to have you in the Facebook community as well, International Property Investors. You can find it by searching on Facebook or by going to our Facebook page, the Momentum Property Education Facebook page. You can find the linked group there. So again, we'd love to have you as part of the community. We love connecting with you. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I hope to see you again very soon.